What if superpowered people weren't heroes but in fact just a product? It's finally time to talk about The Boys. Hi, my name's Drew and welcome to another review video on Flying Wiener. I am talking about the Amazon Prime video series The Boys, which you may have heard of, especially if you're active on social media and have, got superheroes or comic booky stuff on your radar, because they pop up all over the place because they produce some of the best memes. I mean, by they, I mean either the social media people that are working on the show, or in fact, just the show itself provides people with so much material to make memes out of. If you're not familiar with what it's about, we'll get to the plot in a minute. I will preface this, by the way, by saying I'm talking about just generally about all three series, but also obviously the most recent one, season 3. That is mainly what I want to talk about, but I will touch upon all of it because I think all of it is great. In a world where, although I am a geek, I love the MCU, I love all sorts of other comic book stuff, either from DC Comics or other publishers, etc. This is still something very, very special because it's just so radically different and it's just wonderful to watch. So while I get that like Marvel or DC can't really do so much in the same vein, of course they could if they wanted to, but they probably don't want to. I do hope that they pick and choose some of the elements in the show to integrate into their own, because there are a lot of things here that you can really make work with all sorts of comic book properties. I have actually also started reading the comic book that the show is based on. I'm not quite finished yet. I think I'm probably like 3/4 through the whole thing, and it is very, very different, I will say. And I will also say, and this may be controversial, I'm not sure, but I do feel that the Prime Video show actually improves a lot on things that were in the comic, because the comic very quickly can feel like it is trying to be, I'll call it edgy or something. There are things in there. If you think that the show has got a lot of shock value, then the comic has definitely got a lot more of that. And there it feels a lot more so that it's just in there to, just make you go, oh wow, I can't believe they did this. So I feel that the show definitely does it a lot more nuanced. It's a lot better in that way. It also improves on the characters, I feel. I mean, one funny thing is the main character, Hughie, in the comic he's actually Scottish, which he isn't in the show. He's American there. That was quite interesting. That was funny to see. But I feel that many people like myself, they probably think that Butcher is the coolest character, at least if we're talking from out of the Boys. Although they're all great. I will say they're all great. But I think Butcher is just the best. And he is definitely a massive improvement from the comics, because in the comics he actually isn't really that likable, because it feels like there's hardly any redeeming quality about him, to be perfectly honest. So the show actually really improves on that, and just the whole dynamic. And one massive change, and this is definitely a spoiler for the comics, but one massive change is that in the comics, the Boys are actually, all of them, they've taken Compound V, which is the drug that gives them superpowers, whereas in the TV show they're just normal human beings who are saying, we don't want to become them, that's the whole point of what we do. And that is a massive change of the dynamic, and it actually works so much better because it really, it ups the tension and obviously the danger for our characters, because they're just normal human beings who can be torn to shreds in an instant. So it's like David taking on Goliath, basically. Now, if you haven't heard of The Boys, just to give you a rundown of what the plot is, we have got a group of normal human beings, like I just mentioned, bar one. There's one member who does actually have superpowers, and she has been convinced to join them, join their fight against the Supes, as they're called. And they, for various personal reasons, despise the superpowered beings, the Supes, because in this world there is a company called Vought, and they actually use these superheroes just to push products. So these superheroes, they don't actually do a lot of superheroing. You don't see it, and it doesn't actually happen. They might do it once in a while, just to sort of give the impression that they're actually helping. but they're just there to appear in films and just sell all sorts of products, you know, just to have their faces plastered onto them, or appear at events and all these things. So basically they've taken the superheroes and they turn them into a product. And you know, this and with that, it really goes to their head, and they just do the most crazy things you can think of. You know, they think, obviously not just because of their powers, but because of their celebrity status in the world, that they can just do anything and they are untouchable. So as you can probably imagine, they really go off the deep end, quite a lot of them, and they do really horrific things. And they just don't care about people because they can just tear them apart in an instant. There's no emotion there, you know. They don't want to help the little guy, you know. They frankly just don't care about the little guy. And it's just so crazy to see. It's a lot of fun, and so we get, like I say, the boys are trying to get them over, not just the Supes themselves. They are actively trying to kill them, you know, so it's not like we want to bring them to justice before a court. They're like, no, we have to kill them because they are a danger to humanity. But they're also obviously trying to bring down Vought, this huge company that is, you know, doing all this. And Vought themselves, what the real danger is they are trying to push it so far, they're trying to convince the American Congress that the Supes can actually be used in the army. So, you know, it just takes the thing to a whole different level if suddenly wars are being fought with these superpowered beings. That is the basic premise of the show. That is what it's all about. And it is just really interesting, really refreshing just to see this, because like I say, these superheroes, you will, even I believe if you haven't seen the show for whatever reason, you will somewhere have seen Homelander, I suppose, and he is basically what would an evil Superman be, or but not as that sounds very, very simple, you know, that sounds like I put it very simple. Actually, it doesn't do it justice, because he doesn't just evil, you know, he just is really the worst human being alive. He is completely selfish and self-centered, you know, and he is just, his head's definitely not in the right place. I won't go into details. You need to discover all the things about him as the show progresses. And yeah, he is just a wonderful villain. And there are a lot of things to like about this show. You will also hear that a lot of it is just shock value. You know, you see brutal things that happen. And yes, while that is the case, what many people might misunderstand is that that is actually not the selling point. You know, it's not in there to make you go, oh, this is why I watched the show. Pretty much all of them are really hilarious. If you're into sort of, you know, just exaggerated violence and completely ludicrous things that happen, it is bloody funny. At times, bloody being a very essential word of it. Yes, it is absolutely hilarious at times, and I think it just works because also it's not like we have it all the time. Actually, when you look at it, there's actually not a lot of action going on, so it's not like we're seeing superheroes fighting all the time like we would in a typical comic book show. Not at all. But when it does happen, it's usually placed very well, and it just has a great effect. So while there is a lot of things that you could see as being shock value, they are used really, really well. But instead of that, it's really about the dynamics between the people, also between the Supes, because you see, obviously, over time you learn that there's some nuance there, not much, but some there. They've all got their own stories and things going on, and just the interactions, especially between the two groups and all these things, they are really what make this show. And the two main characters, I'll call them, in that sense, I know there's Hughie. We're basically Hughie, you know, that's how we come into this world. But it's, you know, Butcher is the is the guy you really want to identify with, or at least you want to follow him through the story, because he's just such a a beautiful nut job. Basically, it's just so much fun because he just doesn't care, you know. And then you've got Homelander, who we just love. He's one of these villains we just love to see and love to hate. So if you are kind of sick of just the typical superhero stuff that goes on and want to see things where it's taken to the next level, where you know, there are actual stakes, and particularly if you want to see, you know, what would a world be like where these superheroes don't just do good, you know, where they act more like the villains, I'll call it, but everyone still thinks they're the superheroes, then you need to, you know, watch this show. But it's also, and this is what many people might not get, they think it's about the shock value, but it's a lot about, you could call it satire, and it definitely satirizes a lot of the things that go on nowadays, particularly when it comes to big companies and what they do to humanity, and, you know, in the sense of how they try and lead them in certain directions or sell their products to them, all these things. And it is quite funny, actually. I mean, the joke's not lost on me that the company making this is actually Amazon, who worldwide, you know, is one of the, you could call, most evil companies, at least when it comes to their own workers and working times and all these things, working conditions, etc. You know, so that joke isn't lost on me. And I do say, while I really dislike a lot of the things that Amazon does in that sense, I feel that you can't hate them 100% just because of this show, because it is just so good. You'll see so many elements, they make fun of so many things that we know from our news cycle and memes and everything that happens nowadays, and it's just beautiful to watch. Also, because it's not leaning one way or the other, so you can't accuse the show of, you know, just satirizing the right wing, let's say, because they also make a lot of fun of left wing stuff and certain elements. I mean, I am quite cautious using the word woke, because I do think that people really use that for everything that may be slightly to the left that they don't like, whereas I see woke as something where people take it to the extreme, you know, where it's very, very far on the left wing of the spectrum. And I do feel that they make good fun of those same people, you know, who want to have endless discussions on how, instead of just talking to people, we first need to discuss for 3 hours how are we going to talk to them, how are we going to address them, and all these things, where the people themselves might not even care about it, but these people, they want to have this discussion or more discussions. Now, just to be clear, I myself see myself, if I had to, you know, put myself somewhere on the political spectrum, I would easily be somewhere on the left side of it. But The Boys, like I say, makes a great job of satirizing both sides, and it's just so beautiful. So if you can take a joke, regardless of where you are on this political spectrum, you will love The Boys. You will really love that. And that is one of the main things. But it's just really good character development. And so there are a lot of elements into it. So if you read something about it, you know, on the surface just being there for shock value and it's rubbish, etc., give it a try, you know, and you'll see there are so many nuances. There's so many things going on here. There's so much going on beneath the surface that makes this a really, really standout show. And just to briefly mention season 3, I did say at the start I'll be talking more about season 3. Turns out, no, I'm not. Never mind. This most recent series is very, very interesting for many things that I won't spoil for you, of course, but one of the things that's also been used a lot in the promotional material is Soldier Boy. He is a real parody, you could say, of Captain America, so even the look is very much like that. It's like, what if Captain America did not have these values? And did drugs and all sorts of things, and he is really a magnificent addition. So if you like the first 2 seasons, you need to watch it just for Soldier Boy. You know, he really enhances the whole dynamic so much more. There's so many great episodes here. Yeah, I would love to mention a lot of things that happen, but at the same time I don't want to spoil it. I'll just say, if you enjoyed the first 2 seasons, you need to watch the 3rd one, because it just takes it even further, and I can't wait to see the next one, you know, and by that time I'll have finished the comic, so I'll get all of the references that he put in. That'll be all from me today. Like I say, I absolutely love The Boys. You should watch it if you've got Amazon Prime Video. It's definitely worth the subscription just for that alone. If you want to see something very different, absolutely get it. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe. It's the best way to support this channel. Put down in the comments anything you want to see about this show, comparisons to the comic, you know, just anything of that caliber down in the comments below. I'll thank you again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video on Flying Wiener. Take care. Bye.